Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Kelvin Kotchilea, and I'm the candidate for the Northwest Territories with the NDP Party. And I have here with me Jagmeet Singh, our leader for the New Democratic Party. And this is our annual tour visitation to Yellowknife for the Northwest Territories. And we're right in front of Independent Grocer to do a price check on the high cost of prices in the, just across the north for us, and specifically Loblaws. And it's hard on the everyday family, especially from low to medium to middle income. And I'll just get Jagmeet to come in.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much, Kelvin. Kelvin, I'll pass this to you. We're going to talk about what we just bought today. So as Kelvin mentioned, it's become an annual thing now. This is 3 summers in a row. I get to hang out in this beautiful part of the country, and also an incredible opportunity to spend time with our candidate, Kelvin Kotchilea, who's an awesome representative that we're really honored is representing the party here in this riding, and we look forward to him becoming our next member of parliament. And as Kelvin said, we're here to look at the price of groceries. And one of the things we know is when you go into a grocery store and you're buying and spending more than ever before and you're leaving with less than ever before, people feel ripped off. And they're right to be ripped off. Is because these large corporate grocery stores are ripping off Canadians. And just to give you an example, we bought 3 items, and they're all President's Choice items. So that's the in-house brand of Loblaws, which is the largest corporate grocery store in the country. So 3 items. We bought their President's Choice regular olive oil, $20 for this olive oil. We bought a bag of apples, and it's more than $1 per apple because this bag was $10. President's Choice apples again. That's their brand. And then we bought President's Choice peaches, and barely 7 peaches, again $10. President's Choice is the brand, the in-house brand for Loblaws. Loblaws is the largest corporate grocery store in Canada, and they're posting record profits at a time when people can't afford their groceries. We called these folks to committee. I hauled the CEOs of these corporations to committee and said, how much profit is enough? You're already making record profits. How much more do you want to make? And they had no answer, because the rules have been written by Liberals and Conservatives to let these corporations rip you off. And we know the North has already been struggling. It's already been hard to afford groceries in the North. It's even harder now when corporate grocery stores have free reign to rip off people. And we know they're ripping you off because we just saw recently, a couple of weeks ago, I'm sure you remember, that Loblaws was penalized $500 million for their role in the bread price fixing. So they were involved in fixing the price of bread, basically working with other companies, bread producers and corporate grocery stores, to jack up the price of bread to rip you off. So they've already done this. These large corporations have already done this, and Liberals and Conservatives have ignored this. They haven't done anything to stop them from ripping you off. Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre's parties have written the rules to allow them to get away with maybe barely a slap on the wrist when they collude to jack up the price of food. So we're saying enough's enough. They cannot continue to rip you off. So what we're proposing is this. If large corporate grocery stores don't reduce the price of food essentials, given that they're making record profits, if they don't reduce the price of food essentials, we will impose a price cap. This is something that's been done in other countries. It has effectively brought down the price of groceries for essentials. We're thinking about bread and baby formula, essentials that people need. They should be able to be affordable. And that's what we're calling for today. A price cap should be imposed on corporate grocery stores that don't lower the price of their groceries at a time when they're making record profits and people are using food banks at a record level. That has got to end. That's our proposal to do it. Justin Trudeau's had 9 years, hasn't done anything about this, has failed people. Pierre Poilievre wants to throw fuel on the fire of corporate greed. His buddies are all the lobbyists for these large corporate grocery stores. They're not going to stop them from ripping you off, but we are. We're proposing this plan. The Liberals and Conservatives voted against this plan actually when we proposed it just before the end of session. We're not going to stop fighting to make sure we stop these corporate grocery stores from ripping you off. Do that again in French and then I look forward to your questions. Donc je suis tellement honoré d'être ici encore dans le territoire nord-ouest. Maintenant, c'est quelque chose qu'on fait chaque année. On a eu l'honneur d'être ici 3 étés, donc c'est le 3e cette fois. Et on est vraiment honoré d'avoir un candidat comme Kelvin Kotchilea comme notre candidat pour la région. Et comme Kelvin a dit, on est ici pour parler des prix d'épicerie. On vient de faire l'épicerie et on a acheté 3 choses. De l'huile, $20. Des pêches, $10 et des pommes, $10. Ce sont les marques de Loblaws, ce qui est la plus grande entreprise d'épicerie au Canada. Et ce qui est clair, ces entreprises arnaquent les gens. Ça, c'est la raison pour laquelle les prix sont assez élevés. On sait en général que les prix dans le Nord étaient toujours élevés, mais maintenant, avec ces grandes entreprises qui exploitent les gens, les prix sont plus hauts que jamais. Et on doit arrêter ça. Justin Trudeau a ignoré le problème. Son bilan est un échec, c'est une faillite. Et Pierre Poilievre veut jeter l'huile sur le feu de cette exploitation. On sait que ces entreprises exploitent les gens parce qu'on sait qu'ils ont fixé le prix du pain dans le passé. Et donc, c'est clair qu'on doit agir, on doit faire quelque chose. Ce qu'on propose, c'est le suivant. On propose de forcer ces entreprises de réduire les prix des essentiels. Sinon, on va plafonner les prix. C'est une approche que les autres pays ont pris et c'est une approche qui a fonctionné. Donc, ça, c'est notre approche. Quand Justin Trudeau était une faillite et quand Pierre Poilievre veut jeter l'huile sur le feu de cette exploitation, on a une solution pour arrêter ces compagnies qui arnaquent les gens et défendre les consommateurs. Merci. Thank you so much. With that, I'm ready for any questions you might have.
Do one question and follow up. We'll start with CBC.
All right.
In the NWT and many small communities, we don't really a grocery store. Instead, the groceries there are sold at either a corner store or an even smaller independent, grocery store. For example, in any community, if you want to get groceries, you go to the same place where you would get lodging, like the kind of hotel. So very kind of small scale. I wonder what difference you hope that would make in small communities.
Our main focus is on corporate grocery stores. So the northern corporate grocery stores, that would apply as well. We know that the northern food program has not been working. It's been a failure as well. We saw recent reports that instead of the northern food program, the money going towards making food more affordable. Instead, we saw a third of that funding was going to line the pockets of the CEO of that corporation. Another example of corporate greed again. So what we want to see is we want to end to corporate greed that's ripping off Canadians. We want to see programs like the Northern Food Program actually work for the North. And we want to see corporate grocery stores stop exploiting people. They've got a massive monopoly, effectively. There's only a handful of large corporate grocery stores that sell food. We want to see that they're actually not able to rip off people. We want to see more protections in place. And we can do that. We've got the ability to put in place laws that will protect consumers. And for smaller communities, they're feeling the impact even higher. The costs for groceries are astronomical in all those communities. So we need to see real relief so that people can get the food they need and it's affordable. It's not going to happen on its own. It's going to require clear laws and a clear vision around how do we create affordability. That's what we're talking about. Forcing this to happen with laws that protect consumers, reforming northern food programs so they actually work.
Yeah, you could answer this in English now.
Sure.
Your party is raising the theory that the Conservative Party would use offshore funds to write social media posts. What proof do you have that the Conservative Party itself is behind the posts about Pierre Poilievre's name?
Right. Well, this is a question that Pierre Poilievre should answer. We're raising the concern because it's pretty obvious when you look at the number of messages that were identical and that were shared from people that live in places not just around Canada but around the world. It started to raise a lot of questions, and people said, well, this looks pretty sketchy that you've got a whole host of messages like this. And so we're saying, well, the Conservative Party should respond. Was it them? Was it Pierre Poilievre? Is he hiring farm bots to do this type of amplification? Is that what they're doing? Or if it's not, then we need an investigation into where this is coming from. So that's why we're calling tomorrow. We'll be writing a letter to Elections Canada and to the Ethics Commissioner to investigate these bot farms, to investigate where they're coming from, who's responsible, and if it is a Conservative Party, they got to fess up. And if it's not, then we need to get to the bottom of it. Is it a third-party advertiser? Well, that needs to be registered then. Or is it foreign interference? Either way, we need to know what it is. It's quite serious that there's basically duplicate messages flooding social media, the exact same message from people that seem to be having addresses around the world. That is sketchy behavior, and we need to know what it's about. Oh yes, en français, oui. Donc, je pense que ça soulève des questions pour Pierre Poilievre. Il doit répondre. Est-ce que c'était le Parti conservateur qui l'a fait? Parce que c'est clair, il y a des éléments qui sont inquiétants de ces messages sur les médias sociaux, sur les réseaux sociaux. Donc, il doit répondre. Est-ce que c'était le Parti conservateur? Sinon, on doit avoir une enquête. On doit savoir si c'était un autre organisme qui l'a fait ou si c'était l'ingérence étrangère. Ça, c'est pourquoi on va écrire une lettre à l'Action Canada pour enquêter cette question et pour la commissaire d'éthique pour enquêter cette situation aussi.
You go to Cabin Radio next.
Cabin Radio.
So a lot of the reasons for this response here is to bring it up. So are you looking at any solutions for local?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a host of challenges in the North. The North has already been challenging when it comes to food prices before. What today we're really focused on is we know that a big part of why food prices are so high is corporate greed. And it's something that the other parties are unwilling to call out. So we're being very specific. We see the record profits being posted by these public companies. They're publicly traded companies, so their profits are available. And we're seeing that they're posting record profits. I've directly questioned the CEOs of these corporations who admit that they're making record profits at a time when Canadians are having record challenges. And this is a problem. And the fact that they continue to rip us off and there's no rules in place to protect us is a problem. And to give an example, like the bread price fixing, this is a real thing. Large corporate grocery stores and bread producers colluded, basically worked together to jack up the price of our bread. And so we know they've done this before, and we feel that they're doing it now. So that's our main focus, is tackle the corporate greed. But we also need to look at other solutions for northern communities. One of the things that one of my colleagues, one of the members of our team, Laurie Idlout, has talked about is when we talk about a northern food program, it should look at ways of supporting northerners who want to engage in traditional ways of hunting and providing traditional country food and subsidizing or supporting those hunters so that that food can be more readily available. That's a sustainable source of food, and those hunters can be supported in that way. There's all the ways of looking at how we can make food more accessible in the north. But one of the things that we know for sure is that large corporations are ripping off people, and that has to stop.
While I have you both here, I wanted to get either one or both of your thoughts on NWT MP Michael McLeod retirement.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter who the MP is. It's clear that the Liberals and Justin Trudeau have let down people in the north. If you ask anyone in the north, your cost of groceries are up, cost of rent is up, cost of housing is harder than ever before. What was the point of having a Liberal here? They've not made life more affordable. So it doesn't matter who the MP is or who the candidate is for the Liberals. It's clear that the Liberals have let you down. And that's why folks need a New Democrat. If you think about this minority government, New Democrats have been the ones who've been fighting for people. We fought to bring in more relief. We fought to bring in more help. We're the ones that are calling out the corporate greed that is driving up the cost of groceries. So you need another voice that's actually going to fight for you, that's going to stand up for you. And that's what you'll get with Kelvin Kotchilea. That's what you get with New Democrats.
Yeah, would an NDP government support Mackenzie Valley Highway, and how would they pay for it?
In terms of infrastructure, this is something that we believe the federal government has a very important role. So whether it's roads, bridges, connecting communities, we believe the federal government has a role to play. The Northwest Territories and municipalities aren't in a position to fund these large projects. That's exactly the role of the federal government, to make sure these communities are livable, make sure that they've got the infrastructure necessary, Mackenzie Highway being one example of really fundamental infrastructure. So we believe that this is a job creator. It should be tied to community benefit agreements, meaning that if we build a project in the north, we should get jobs for northerners. People should be able to get hired in the north first, and then if other work is required, we can bring in more workers. But these are opportunities to build up the community, and this is the role of the federal government, to invest in infrastructure that makes communities more livable. Oui.
Oui, vous avez répondu à ma collègue ici à propos de votre position. Comment est-ce que ça va s'appliquer dans les petites communautés du Grand Nord qui n'ont pas la chaîne Longue-Nord? Vous avez été sur un peu critique du programme Nutrition Nord. Pouvez-vous répéter ça en français?
Oui, bien sûr. Donc, premièrement, où il y a une grande entreprise qui vend la nourriture dans n'importe quelle communauté, on veut arrêter ces grandes entreprises qui exploitent les gens. On veut arrêter l'exploitation. Ça, c'est pour nous une priorité primordiale. Donc, ça, c'est pourquoi on présente notre option. Mais pour les autres communautés qui n'ont pas une présence d'une grande entreprise, la réalité, c'est le programme Nutrition Nord ne fonctionne pas pour le but. Ce qui était de réduire les prix des épiceries, mais ça ne fonctionne pas. Un rapport a mentionné le fait que les entreprises qui utilisent ce programme, un tiers des fonds vont dans les poches des secondes entreprises au lieu d'aider les gens. Ça, c'est complètement inacceptable. Donc, on doit avoir une réforme totale, une réforme massive de ce programme pour qu'il puisse fonctionner pour aider les gens. Un élément de ce qu'on propose qui doit être dans ce programme, c'est une façon pour aider les chasseurs traditionnels qui peuvent nourrir la population avec une source de nourriture locale avec la chasse. Ça, c'est quelque chose qu'on peut appuyer. Donc, on doit appuyer les gens dans une façon qui fonctionne et on doit avoir une réforme massive de ce programme parce que c'est clair que ça ne fonctionne pas.
On va en élection fédérale l'an prochain. Comment votre plateforme et vos propositions vont séduire les résidents des territoires du Nord-Ouest? Est-ce que vous pensez que l'heure est venue pour les gens ici d'avoir un député du NPD?
Oui, bien sûr, évidemment. Ça, c'est pourquoi on a assisté le Nord, particulièrement Yellowknife et le territoire plusieurs fois dans 3 ans. On a été ici souvent. On n'a pas seulement visité Yellowknife, on a aussi visité, on a assisté des autres communautés. On a assisté Hay River et la communauté autochtone. On a assisté aussi Betcheko et les autres communautés près de Yellowknife. Et on a vraiment senti les enjeux. On a écouté les gens. Donc, vous avez quelqu'un un chef qui est présent dans le Nord. Parce que notre parti a toujours dit on veut créer un Canada où personne n'est laissé à côté, n'est pas laissé à côté. Ça, c'est notre vision pour le Canada. Et pour le Nord, c'est clair que souvent, le Nord est laissé à côté. Donc, on doit changer ça. Et ça, c'est pourquoi je pense qu'on a besoin d'un député fort pour le Nord, quelqu'un qui comprend les enjeux et qui va se battre pour vous. Ça, c'est Kelvin Kotchilea. Ça, c'est le Parti néo-démocratique. Et on va avoir un plan dans notre plan électoral. On va présenter un plan spécifique pour le Nord, pour reconnaître les enjeux qui frappent fort ici dans le Nord et pour présenter les solutions aussi. Merci. Yeah, for sure.
So I'm wondering, it's been mentioned that a lot of northern communities don't have an independent Northwest company, and there are transportation issues, especially with the water levels and the margins that we have in the country. I'm wondering what programs will the NDP have to offset the transportation costs of flying in groceries from what sort of programs are NDP looking into beyond corporate?
For sure. Yeah. So our focus is, of course, on corporate greed. We think this is a major problem, and it does impact the North. There's a lot of there are large corporations that function in the North. There's also one major retailer that is a large corporation that does function in smaller communities that is benefiting from a federal program, but is not actually benefiting the people. So one of our major calls is to reform Nutrition North. That program is supposed to offer that help to those smaller communities. It's not working. It's very clear. I've been to smaller northern communities and the costs are astronomical. If we think the costs are high here, and they're even higher in those smaller communities. So that has to change. And one of the ways is to make sure that the Nutrition North program, every cent has to go towards helping a northerner get food that's affordable. So that's one thing that we're pushing for. In addition, a sustainable solution for the North is to support local hunters that want to engage in their traditional way of getting food that's local and sustainable, but often don't have the means to do so. So if Nutrition North has an element of it that supported northern hunters to be able to provide food for their communities, that would be one way that's providing sustainable, healthy, local, traditional food. So that's one thing that we promote and we are going to push for. In addition, when you talk about the cost of transportation, it is a real concern. So we need to look at ways that we address how do we supplement or how do we subsidize those costs, but in a way that actually benefits workers directly, benefits people directly, benefits Northerners directly. And we're concerned that so far the approach has not been one that's been very efficient in getting help to people. It's been lining the pockets of corporations that operate in small communities in the North, but not actually benefiting those people. And that's something that's got to change, and that's what we're focused on.
Just regarding the bread price fixing scandal, is there anything being done to reimburse consumers who were affected?
Great question. So there's a couple of things that happened, but I think that this highlights how bad this problem is. So one is consumers got together and started a class action lawsuit. I want to be really clear. Consumers that get ripped off by a large corporation shouldn't have to resort to initiating a class action lawsuit as a way to get justice. Like, government should be standing up for them and stopping these corporations from ripping them off. That's why we put in place laws. That's why we have the Competition Bureau. It's supposed to be there to protect people from getting ripped off, to prevent these type of these type of illegal actions from happening in the first place. But it's clear that our laws in Canada have not been written to protect people. They've been written to protect the profits of these large corporations. Under the Competition Bureau, when there was an investigation and a finding, the biggest fine that was levied on one of the biggest players in the bread price fixing, Canada Bread Corporation, the biggest fine that they got was $50 million. But the total benefit that the bread producers and the corporate grocery stores accrued, the total benefit that they got was $5 billion. So if you can imagine, $50 million in reference or in comparison to $5 billion is not even a slap on the wrist. It's not even a rounding error. It's not at all going to deter them from doing it again. And that was the biggest award. That was the biggest penalty awarded, was $50 million. So clear that our laws are not strong enough. And so what I propose is changing those laws, bringing in place harsher penalties. One penalty that I suggested in a law that I wrote was, if a corporation rips off Canadians and is found that they've ripped off to the tune of $5 billion, then what we should do is penalize them $15 billion, triple the benefit. This is a law that was brought in other jurisdictions that really deters corporations from ripping off consumers. So if you're up against a penalty that is triple the amount that you benefited, it would really deter this corporation from doing that in the future. If the fines are only going to be $50 million and they made $55 billion, they're not going to stop. And so that's what I'm calling for. Real harsh penalties for corporations that rip off people. And we know that they're doing it. We know that they did it with bread price fixing. How do we not know that? How do we know that they're not doing it in other areas? We see all the corporate grocery stores have jacked up their prices. Maybe that collusion is happening again. We need better laws to protect consumers. Go for it.
Kelvin, I was wondering if you live and work here in the NDP. Can you tell me a little bit about what it was like in the grocery store the last time you grocery shoppers? And I don't mean earlier today. The last time you shopped.
Yeah, I think, say a year and a half ago, for a family of four, we were averaging around, say, like 200 a week. And now I feel like our grocery bill is around $350. And it all depends if I decide to take out meat, going for other brands that we typically were going before. And one key thing for me, it's you either eat your food as medicine or your medicine as food. So it's not fair to me or to my children or to my wife that we have to either go for products that are not really good for our consumption. And I feel it for myself personally. I can only imagine how low to medium income households feel, and anybody that has more than a family of four. It's just a hard time right now. And when I'm out and about with community members or even people in the grocery store, some of them feel that they're not really having much money left over for either extracurricular activities for their children, to keep them, in a healthy state and keep them active. So it's very unfortunate that we definitely have to call out big corporations on what they're doing to us as consumers.
That's great.
Sure, one more for Kevin.
Yeah.
When you talk about food sources, you mentioned gluten a couple times. But what about food, like
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I should have mentioned that too. Thanks. doing a little swisheroo here. Yeah, I focused on the hunting aspect because that's a specific program that we pitched through one of our candidates, one of our MPs, Laura Yedlow, talking about how that would help. But yeah, we should also look at all sorts of ways to grow locally. In northern climates, of course, the soil might not be available for that purpose, or it might not be the right climate, but there's ways around it. Greenhouses are great. There's vertical growing, there's indoors ways of growing food. So looking at alternatives to be able to grow food locally is an awesome idea, and it's something that we should be able to find ways to support with government investments that encourage and support building the infrastructure necessary to grow food in communities. That's an important tool in making sure food is accessible and affordable, for sure.
Last question to CBC.
Yes.
If you can answer this in English and French.
Sure.
The Conservatives want to recall the Public Safety Committee to examine how father and son arrested by the RCMP in an alleged ISIS terror plot attempt to immigrate to Canada. How effective do you think the community is getting?
I think the concern is a very legitimate concern that shows a gap in our immigration system that someone, first of all, I want to acknowledge the hard work it took to foil the attempt. So there was an attempt that could have resulted in something really, really horrible happening. And so I want to acknowledge all the law enforcement folks that were involved in foiling and stopping their attempt to commit a violent act. So it's really important to acknowledge the hard work that went into stopping it. But it is true that this does highlight that there was a problem. This highlights a problem in the immigration system, that clearly something happened that allowed for folks connected to clearly a terrorist organization to come to Canada. And so this needs to be investigated. The best way to do it, I think we're going to look at what is the best approach to investigating this. But it is clear that this is something we have to take seriously, and we need to find answers for why this happened and how we can prevent it in the future. Oh, it's en français. Premièrement, je veux remercier les policiers qui ont arrêté cet acte violent avant qu'il se passe. Donc, c'est important de reconnaître leur travail. Mais c'est inquiétant le fait que 2 personnes ont immigré ici avec des liens avec un groupe terroriste. Ça, c'est quelque chose de tellement inquiétant. Donc, on va réfléchir sur c'est quoi la meilleure façon pour répondre aux questions. Comment c'est passé et comment on peut arrêter ça pour l'avenir. Donc, on va faire un suivi de notre côté. C'est quoi la meilleure façon d'arrêter cette chose de se passer pour le futur?
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much. It was great to have you all here. Great questions. Appreciate it. Thank you. Merci.